Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with the lovely Kelly. If you guys watched any of our book club live streams, you will have seen Kelly before. And we are in the extremely small town of Pilsen, home of Father Capen. And we are here to bring you guys some spooky season reads that we think are just absolute musts for this spooky season.
Yes.
And we're also going to be bringing you some not so great ones.
Some things to avoid.
Definitely. Some things to avoid. So, sharing some
I want to
reads.
point out, Amy, that I'm wearing the only Halloween earrings that I actually own. They're 3 little lacy bats.
I love them.
Little fish at the bottom.
I love
them. The only spooky earrings I own. So there you go.
Yeah, and they're amazing. It's freaking bats!
It's bats, man. It's bats. Okay.
Okay.
On with the books is what they're saying.
Yes, on with the book.
On with the books. Okay, well, I am starting with Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book. Get a little closer for you there. So it is about a young boy who's raised in a graveyard. When he was a toddler, his whole family was murdered, and somehow he got away through various events and ended up in this graveyard where the ghosts of the graveyard decide to adopt him. And since he's just a baby and can't really speak, they name him Nobody, because he's nobody. The guy that killed his family is like still out there, so there's this threat and they decide they're going to protect him, and the best way for him to disappear is to become Nobody. So Nobody Owens, Knob for short. So he grows up in the graveyard, and it's kind of a coming of age story with, of course, the twist, as Neil Gaiman always does. It's coming of age in a graveyard, but he has all kinds of adventures in this graveyard as he grows up. He has to learn how to do things. He learns how to do ghosty things, I should say. They teach him those things while he kind of grows up ignorant of what a normal child might learn. So it's a different sort of coming of age story, but of course there's also the sideline of the threat is still out there, and as long as he's in the graveyard, he's protected, but he can't stay in the graveyard forever. So what happens? And as per usual, it is clever, it is funny in parts, it is tear-jerking in some parts. It is a children's book, so it is not gory in any way. It is spooky, it has the vibes, but it's not particularly like terrifying. I mean, to some parents it might be terrifying, but for children probably not so much. But it is spooky, it is a little scary, but good book. I love it very much. So there you go, that's my first.
Okay, so the first book that I'm going to talk about is actually part of a series, and that is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. It's part of the series of Raven Cycle. There's 4 books in this series, and they pretty much all follow along with this girl named Blue, who comes from a family of clairvoyants and psychics, and she ends up becoming friends with these rich boys from this private school, who she typically tries to avoid, but for some reason is drawn to them. And they go on this quest to try and find the resting place of the legendary Welsh king Glendower. And one of the boys that she becomes friends with is like obsessed with finding the resting place of this Welsh king, and they just go on all of these quests, and it kind of becomes like a tale of like life or death for a little bit there. Things get really sketchy. It follows a lot of their friendship as Blue starts to get closer to these Raven boys, and also there's a little bit of romance in it, which I typically do not like, but I have to say the romance in this book is so adorable and I love it so much. But there's just like a lot of spooky vibes in this entire series, just because of all of the they have to try and communicate with the other side in order to find where this Welsh king could potentially be resting. And it's just like a really great adventure, and I freaking love it so much. Like every single book in the series, like all 4 books, are just as good as one another. Like usually in a series you'll have like one or two in the middle where they're just like, they're kind of meh, like there's filler books. No, every single one in this series is good and worth a read.
So since my last one was a kid's book, I'm moving forward to a young adult book, which is Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendari Blake. See that? It's a beautiful, beautiful cover. And another kind of cool aesthetic, I don't know if you can see it, but the print in the book is tinted red. So it's kind of cool.
It's like it's written in blood.
Yeah, so it's very cool. So Anna Dressed in Blood. This is like I said, a young adult book. It is a ghost story. It is a bit of horror. It is a bit of romance as well. Not a lot, but some. But the main character is Cass Lowood, and he is a ghost hunter. He is 17 years old, and he's a ghost hunter. So he goes after ghosts who are violent and kill people. And then he has this special knife that came to him from his dad, who was also a ghost hunter, who was killed. And he goes out, and with this special knife, he can basically kill ghosts. So he can lay them to rest with this knife. So it opens up when he's on a job, and it kind of shows what he does. And then they pick up, he's with his mom, and they pick up and move a lot. They follow the ghosts, basically. And they're going to Canada, to Thunder Bay, Canada, to follow the story of Anna Dressed in Blood, who was supposedly a 16-year-old girl who was murdered on the night of a school dance, and that her ghost haunts her old house and is killing anybody who goes into the house. So that's kind of the setup and the premise, and Cass is going to basically kill Anna. So it kind of, goes through him arriving, and of course he's 17, so he goes to school, and he pretty much uses like socializing with other kids and meeting other kids as ways to figure out where the ghosts are and where they live and the real stories and all of that. So it goes through that. And they have a few run-ins. It does get a bit gory sometimes, but I don't know. I guess in books, gore doesn't really bother me. I don't like gory movies because I don't like to see it, but it doesn't bother me in books. But anyway, a few starts, and they have to formulate a plan on how they're going to kill Anna. But in the meantime, Cass, who for some reason Anna won't kill, keeps going to the house to talk to Anna. And so
it's become a love story.
It becomes a love story in a sense. But there's still, so they go through this, but there's also this other aspect of the ghost that killed Cass's father. And there's a little bit of development on that as well, which I can't get into without being spoilery. But so there's a lot that goes on this book, and it's kind of one that it gets to this point and you think it's done, and then it builds some more to something else, and then you're like, oh my gosh, and then you think it's done, and then something else happens. And I'm a fairly gullible reader, so when I got to the end, I realized that there were hints and clues through the whole thing that I suppose somebody not so gullible as me could pick up and read. But anyway, very much a ghost story. Has, of course, all the spooky vibes. Like I said, it's gory. It's pretty graphically written sometimes, but yeah, definitely the spooky ghost story. Actually, what it gave me was Dean Winchester vibes. Like if Dean Winchester from Supernatural was a 17-year-old boy, I think he would be Cass Lowood. Cass at the beginning is very jaded. He's kind of got this teenage, nobody can understand my life kind of thing going on. And he's a little bit superior to everyone else, because he knows. He's in the know. So anyway, that's kind of, it gives me a little bit of that vibe too. So
that's all you had to say to get me to read that book.
I know, I'm probably going to send it home with her now. But anyway, it is also, I just found the first in a duology. But you really could read this as a standalone very easily. I mean, I read it years ago. I just reread it last week, and I didn't even know there was a sequel to it. And it's a very satisfying story even without it. But I will now go read the sequel.
Okay. I have another series for you guys. So this is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. Yeah, I had to make sure I'd say that right. This again is another 4-book series, I believe, but it pretty much follows this young girl who is extremely interested in the world of science and medicine, and her uncle is actually a medical examiner, so he does a whole bunch of like autopsies and stuff, and she becomes his apprentice, kind of like under the table, because this takes place back in a time where women were really not allowed to do science, you know, to do anything related to science, and they were not, it wasn't okay for them to be in labs, to be around anything gory, anything that like that, which is everything that she loves. And so her uncle kind of lets her slip in and apprentice and assist him with autopsies, and then he also lets another young man become an apprentice and help out. And I'm sorry, okay,
is this a love story?
It is a love story, but it's a really cute one.
I don't like romance, except this book is so cute.
I just
face it, you do too.
And I only like certain ones, okay? Like this one is done really well.
I only like horror romance.
Yeah, exactly. I like horror romance, okay? Like just let me have it.
Let me have
okay?
my thing.
But anyway, so obviously there is a whole little romance that develops between the girl who is Audrey Rose and the guy Thomas Cresswell, who I just adore. I wish Thomas was a real man, because I would date him in a second, like in a heartbeat. But yeah, so a little romance ensues, and they end up going on these adventures together. Like in this one, they actually try and find Jack the Ripper, the killer. And in some of the others, they try and hunt down, they're in like Romania, and they're looking for Dracula, or like some type of secrets in his castle and things like that. I don't know. There's like a whole bunch of different ones. They also go to Chicago for the World's Fair, and they try and find what a lot of people deem to be America's first serial killer, H.H. Holmes, and also my favorite serial killer. Just in case anyone wants to know who my favorite serial killer is, it's H.H. Holmes, for sure, with his murder hotel and all of that. Oh, amazing work. But anyway, they go and track down him as well in like the last book, I think, but because of all of the like murders and just like it being kind of set in more of like a Victorian era, like gothic stuff, that's why I definitely think that it's a spooky season read. I guarantee when you read it, you're gonna love Thomas Cresswell, because he's the best character in the whole series. The series might be focused on Audrey Rose, but really it's Thomas that just steals the show. He's the best.
Okay, my next one I actually don't have a physical copy of yet, but it looks like this. If you can see it on there, I don't know. It's called The Ballad of Perilous Graves by Alex Jennings. And I was just thinking we probably ought to like hurry up because we're really losing light. And that's fine, because there is literally no way to describe this book. I mean, one of the blurbs on the front says, a hallucinatory wonder, and that is just exactly right. I mean, the main gist is that there is this parallel city to New Orleans called NOLA, and all sorts of things. They have air cars, they have graffiti that's alive and floats down the street. Music is alive, like songs are personified into people and they can walk around and do things. And anyway, music drives the city of NOLA, and someone is trying to steal the 7 songs that power NOLA. These songs get out and they're like roaming around on NOLA, and Professor Doctor, or is it Dr. Professor? I can't remember. Anyway, he's the one that's charged to take care of the songs, and he comes to Perry Graves, Perilous, and his sister Brendy and their friend Peaches to help him to recover the songs. And so they start off on this adventure. That is such a simple, simplistic description of the book, but that is the main storyline. There is so much else in this book. It is bonkers. I mean, this book is off the wall, and I love it so much. Alex Jennings has such an imagination, and the way he describes New Orleans and Nola. The way he describes music, you can hear it. It's so charming, and I absolutely love it. One thing I would say, there's a whole lot in this book. I think if Alex Jennings could conceive of it, he put it in the book. And so that kind of leads to some plot lines just really not going anywhere. But it really is so charming and so engaging and so well written. And Brendy Graves is like my favorite all-time character. Her dialogue is amazing. I love her so much. And despite having children as really the main characters, it's not a children's book. It's really very much adult in its themes and things. And the main storyline with the kids and the songs, it does wrap up quite well. So with some of the things, I mean, it being kind of a parallel city to NOLA, or to New Orleans, and New Orleans is in the book as well, people in New Orleans. There are kidnappings, there are missing people. Of course, New Orleans is something of a spooky town anyway, so, you know, this graffiti flowing by like spirits or specters. So there's a spooky aspect to the book, and of course there's a bad guy who's trying to destroy Nola, and so that's a little spooky when you find out who that is, and so I think it kind of fits in with the whole spooky time. And it's just nuts. I mean, everything about it is just insanely nuts. So, like I said, I just think it fits in well with the spooky season. It's a lot of fun, too. I really love that book.
Okay, so I don't think that we could talk about spooky season reads without mentioning the king of horror himself, Stephen King. I am going to talk about 4 Stephen King books really quickly. Just because I think that they all deserve to be talked about. First I want to talk about is Pet Sematary. I just recently read this book, I think last year. I'd already seen the movie, but I wanted to go ahead and read the book as well, and y'all, I'm so glad that I did, because this book is amazing. Granted, it's not like overly scary, it's not overly creepy either. Like, the main thing in the book is that it's like just a story about intense grief. That's really what it is, and it's just, that is what makes it so unsettling to read, because you're like put into this mind of someone who is just grieving so hard because he lost someone that he loved and cared about so much, and it's just insane. There is some parts in there where it gets a little graphic, a little gory for sure. I'm thinking about one scene in particular where I was just like, I don't know if I can keep reading this, because unlike Kelly, I'm okay with seeing the horror. I'm not a fan of reading about it, because just my mind just takes it to a whole new level.
It's because you watch it.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't watch it, so, you know.
But I don't know. It was an amazing read. I absolutely loved it, and definitely one to read during spooky season. Another King book that I want to recommend is The Institute. It's one of his newer books. It just came out here within the last few years, but it still holds its own against all of his older books. The guy still got it, all right? He is still the king. The book pretty much follows this group of kids who all have some type of like psychic or telekinetic abilities, and they get thrown into this government facility where they are tested on to the point where almost all of them die. Like, it's pretty much them trying to figure out how these kids got their abilities and how they can weaponize them so that they can use them for like military purposes and things like that. And most of the kids don't survive, and then there's this little boy that gets thrown into the mix, and he pretty much rallies all the kids together. He's stronger than all of the other kids that had been there before, and they like try and escape from this facility. It's a whole grand adventure. It's absolutely incredible. Freaking loved it. There's like so many thrilling aspects, because you're like, are they gonna get caught? Is he gonna get killed? Like, what's gonna happen next kind of a situation. So definitely a must read from him. And then finally, the 2 books that I have left, they go together, part of a duology, and that's The Shining and Dr. Sleep. Have to mention those, of course. So I have always loved The Shining movie, even though Stephen King does not like the movie adaptation of his book. I have always been a huge fan of it, However, after reading The Shining, the book is 10 times better. Like, I would rather read the book than watch the movie, and that's saying quite a lot considering how much I love The Shining movie. And so it's honestly, I have yet to read a book that has actually scared me while reading. The Shining book has been the closest. Like, it literally has like given me nightmares. It is almost guaranteed to create a feeling of that like supernatural paranoia where you just like don't feel alone, even though you are. Like, you're just constantly like looking over your shoulder because you just feel like there's someone else in the room with you. Oh, it's freaking amazing, and I highly recommend that you read it. The second book in this duology, Dr. Sleep, almost acts as like a standalone. There's the cover, but this takes place, I want to say like 10 years after The Shining happened, and it's still following the kid from The Shining and him and his life and everything, and he gets thrown into like this whole new supernatural adventure, I guess you can say, where it's pretty much his life is on the line and he has to try and save all of these people, and he has developed these abilities from his time in The Shining. And I don't know, it does feature some other supernatural creatures that aren't necessarily ghosts that I thought was a bit of a stretch and a little weird. Didn't really care for it too much, but the adventure, the thrill, and all of that really is still what made this book epic to read and just a lot of fun. So that's my King wrap up. Like,
Okay, so mine, it is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. Ray. Very cool cover. I love this book, this edition. But honestly, like I said, I don't remember a lot of details. It's been a couple years since I read it, but I remember the vibes so well. The basic story is that this carnival comes to town, like arrives in the middle of the night. It's a long black train that arrives in the middle of the night, and basically when people in this town go to bed at night, it's not there. When they get up in the morning, there it is. And so it's very mysterious, and the Cougar and Dark's Pandemonium Shadow Show has come to town. So anyway, it's a very mysterious thing, and they go, and it's people go to this carnival, and it's just still kind of your run-of-the-mill. They all have fun, but then strange things start to happen, and these two boys kind of figure things out, and so they're trying to figure out how to stop things. And if I remember right, one of their dads gets kind of caught up in the carnival. I don't remember for sure. Again, details are lost on me, but it is very, very spooky. The carnival aspect and the guy that runs the carnival is creepy. Just, yeah, very creepy. So the vibes are all there. And again, even though it's two kids, teenage boys that are the protagonists, it's really not a kid's story.
no.
It could be young adult. I mean, there's not anything graphic or really dark themes.
Yeah.
But it is spooky. It is creepy, and it is very good. I love it. I love his writing. Ray Bradbury. I love him. So we have seriously lost light here. Now I feel like I'm like at a barn party with people have like their truck lights on, you know.
I look so pale.
Oh, wow.
I'm like a ghost.
Well, hey, the theme. Now we're like Blair Witch.
Oh.
So if y'all see something behind us,
Tell us later.
tell us later, because we won't know.
I don't want to know right now if there's something behind me. Next book that I think is a good read for spooky season is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. There's been a lot of mixed emotions on Hendrix books here lately, but this one is definitely a must-read in my opinion. It follows this one girl who is a final girl, which is somebody who has pretty much been the last one standing in a massacre. It's like the lone survivor of like some type of a massacre, and she joins this therapy group that is full of all final girls. So they go there and they pretty much talk about their trauma and everything that they're still continuing to go through after almost dying and watching all of their friends and family die. And then one day the group starts to kind of disband as everyone else in the therapy group is getting better, but our main character is still struggling hardcore and has become really dependent upon everyone else in the group. And then final girls just start dying one by one, and our main character, she doesn't think that that's a coincidence. She thinks something is definitely up, that someone is targeting all the final girls. No one else seems to believe her, and she kind of just goes on this path to try and survive from this killer no one thinks is actually out there. And the first half of the book, I was reading this and her paranoia became my paranoia. Like, I literally would get home and I would triple check the locks on my front door and my back door, and I would always constantly be like looking for the exit. Anytime I walked into the room, I'd immediately try and find the exit, just like she did in the book. I was constantly looking over my shoulder. Like, it was crazy how paranoid I became, and there was nobody after me that I knew of.
That you know of.
I know, like, but yeah, it was absolutely crazy. And then the second half of the book, it completely flips, and you start thinking, this girl is crazy, ain't nobody after her. And then you're like, whoa, someone is, she ain't crazy. And it's like this whole wild ride where she is literally fighting for her life once again. It's an amazing thriller. Like, I loved it so much. It's so good. I know you're not a fan of Hendrix after some.
Well, I've only read one, so I'm willing to try.
I definitely think you should give this a try, because it was really good. It was really good.
Cool. Okay, which one do I think is more disturbing? Okay, so my next one is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is also the first in a series, and isn't that cover just spectacular? I absolutely love it. One of the blurbs says, I won't get it right if I don't read it. Lesbian necromancers explore a haunted Gothic palace in space. And that is just about wraps it up right there. This one is kind of like Perilous Graves in that you really just can't. You just can't. It's nuts. It's bonkers. I do want to say that normally when someone makes a descriptor like it's lesbians or it's gays or it's, you know, whatever, I think that kind of gives the impression that there's romantic elements to it. There's really not. There are parts you could take it that way, but it is certainly not spelled out. There is not really much romance involved. There is definitely a relationship between these two women, but you could read it as friendship, deep friendship. You could read it as romantic. It's just not overt. So I just wanted to say that right off the bat. But anyway, this is, I don't even know how to describe the world. It's just crazy stupid. But there's like 9 houses, and each of the houses, they all run on like resurrection necromantic magic, but each of them have different kind of specialties or different ways that they use their magic, and they're all united under one king ruler. He's kind of known as King Resurrected or something like that. The Resurrected King. I don't remember for sure. He doesn't make much of an appearance in this book, so I really didn't pay that much attention to it. But when I got into it, I realized that each of these houses represented a planet in this solar system, so there's your kind of space aspect. Anyway, Gideon, who is a woman, belongs to the 9th house, and they are basically charged with protecting this tomb, this crypt, that come to find out is actually something rather important later on. But Gideon is always trying to run away. She's basically kind of the lowest of the low. Everybody treats her poorly because she's an orphan and she's nobody knows for sure if she's even from the 9th house, from the planet. She's kind of just brought in. And then the other one is Harrow, and by the way, they all have like crazy long names. So Gideon and Harrow are like shortened versions of their name, but Harrow is the ruling daughter. So they call her the Reverend Daughter. And she is like this super powerful necromancer, and her ability is like she can raise an entire skeleton out of a knuckle bone. So, I mean, it's really very cool magic. She can create monsters out of skeletal remains. She can power them. She can get them to do whatever they want. And anyway, Emperor, the king, whatever, he makes this call for people, rulers, or members of the ruling family of the 9 houses are to come to this place where it's very vague, but they are to become kind of this special elite group. They have a better understanding of powers. They kind of get that like heightened divine knowledge, bigger, and they would become part of the 1st house. And so he puts out this call, and they're supposed to go, and they think they're going in, because this is sometimes called dark academia, which I don't agree with, but that's why. They think they're all going to learn how to become, and if they can learn enough to discover this secret, then they will become part of the 1st house. So that's where they think they're going. So they get to this other planet, and it turns out to be like the Gothic haunted palace. And they go there, and that's where they start kind of trying to figure things out, and it's very strange. And the person that meets them gives them the rules of the place, and it turns out that it's supposedly something more of a competition than a school, and they're stuck there because all the shuttles that brought them in leave, so it's a locked door kind of thing. And of course someone dies. Someone is murdered horrifically. And they can't leave. So you get kind of, there's a locked door murder mystery, there's a space story, there's fantasy, and then there's necromantic magic. I mean, oh my gosh, it's just crazy. And yeah, and then it's part thriller, and then there's mystery involved as well, because they're all trying to solve the puzzles so that they can find the knowledge, and they figure if they can figure it out and kind of get to the end, maybe they'll be able to find the killer and such. And in the meantime, they're all being picked off one by one. So it's a little bit like Agatha Christie's And Then There Was One. So it's nuts, it's bonkers. I will say for a good probably third of the book, I was horribly confused about what in the hell was going on here, but it did come together. It did make sense. There are things that were left hanging, were not explained very well. I don't think the world building was great, but since it's the first in a series, I'm assuming that will come. So I loved it. I love Gideon. She is smart, she's snarky, she's sarcastic, but not in a way that's annoying. I mean, you really know that she has earned her sarcasm. And Harrow hates her. They hate each other until they end up kind of having to start working together, and then a really deep friendship forms. But when they are in their form of hating each other, the banter between the two of them is really funny. And Gideon especially. I mean, I just love her. I love Gideon. So I have not read any more of this series, but I've heard it's really good and matches up quite well. It is spooky. It is obviously creepy. It does get gory at sometimes. It does get pretty intense. So yeah, definitely an adult book, but very good.
My next book is actually part of a series by Dean Koontz, and it is his take on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. This first book is called The Prodigal Son. I think there's like 10 books in this series. There's a lot of them, but I'm not gonna lie, it's been about 10 years since I read this series, so I don't remember a whole lot of what happens. I just remember it being absolutely amazing. There is a killer that is out stalking the streets, a serial killer, and the cops are trying to take him down, and this is kind of, if I remember correctly, it is a role reversal kind of a situation where it is not the monster that Frankenstein creates that's killing the people, but actually Frankenstein himself, because he's trying, I think, to create more monsters or find things that he is missing. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes down. And so Frankenstein's monster helps the police to try and track down his try and track down Dr. Frankenstein and stop him from killing all these people, if I remember correctly. It's been 10 years. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So
It's something like that anyway.
it's something like that.
Something like that.
All I remember, it was really, really good. Obviously, there's some thriller aspects. You have murder, so that's always spooky. And I think that there is some gore, but not a lot. Kuntz has never really been one to be like super big into gore. It's always kind of more of a like, you have to imagine it yourself. Like, he'll lead you up to it, but he never actually goes out and explains it. So I think that's how these books are as well. And yeah, it was just an absolutely amazing read. Even though the books are kind of long and there's like 10 of them, I'm pretty sure I made it through this whole series in a week.
There you go.
It was absolutely amazing. Highly, highly recommend at least reading this first one, because I thought it was an absolutely great remix on Frankenstein, which, sorry Mary Shelley, but I was not a fan of, but I don't know. I like this Frankenstein better than the OG, but anyway, that's just my opinion.
So, no, like the classics we didn't mention because everybody knows them. Dracula, Frankenstein, Edgar Allan Poe, you know, y'all know that, but I was going to really quickly plug Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. I think probably most people know what that's about too because of the movies if you never read the books or anything, but yeah, again, creepy, very disturbing, so there you go. My last book though is also incredibly disturbing, which is why I saved it for last, which is Mexican Gothic, which again, stunning cover, stunning. So it is about Noemi, who is a socialite in 1950s Mexico City, and her cousin has married into an rich English family who lives way out in the countryside, and she gets this mysterious, or her father gets this mysterious letter from her cousin asking for help, and so her father sends Noemi out to this house, High Place it's called, to find out what's going on, and of course all the Gothic tropes ensue. You've got dark creepy house, you've got strange dark family, you've got a sneaky suspicious husband, lots of secrets going on, and Noemi's cousin is got a mysterious illness, and man does it like spiral downward from there. I had not read a whole lot of Gothic stories. Apparently, like, my view of Gothic stuff was Jane Eyre,
Wuthering Heights.
Wuthering Heights, and man, I was not prepared for this book. I read probably 2/3 of it going, oh, this is getting strange, and then the end happened.
The ending is insane.
Wow. So there's like major themes of course, you know, family and stuff like that, and colonialism, but there's also lots to talk about as far as race, and eugenics makes an appearance, and this old guy who's like the patriarch of this English family is weird, and it gets weird, and there are supernatural elements that pop out along with hallucinatory mushrooms, and oh my gosh, it's just nuts. It does get very intense at the ending. It does get gory.
That's gonna do it for our like must-read spooky books, and now we're gonna move on to our ones that we think that you need to avoid. Probably. They are scary in a whole new way. The kind that you don't want. Or
Yeah,
you don't
like
want.
scary. You can't believe something like this happens.
Yeah. So. Okay.
What's scary is some people like these books.
I
You
know
people are scary.
I know for sure that one of the books that Kelly has sitting over here, there is no one on this earth that could convince me it's a good book. And the fact that there are people out there who actually love it,
There are.
it makes me question humanity.
Well, I'm going to keep this one short because if anybody watches our book clubs, you've already heard us talk about these to death. So the first one was actually our last month's read, which was My Sister the Serial Killer. Again, not going to like rant because we could rant about that book forever. It had no serial killing in it. There was a serial killer in it, but it started with a murder, and well, I don't want to be spoilery in these, do I?
No. It started with a murder.
It started with, well, but not really. It started with a murder cleanup.
is what it started with.
True.
So anyway, there's no actual murdering going on in the book. It is really more just a story about how these two girls are, how they kind of became what they are, and in the case of one of the sisters, kind of struggling to come to terms with her serial killing sister. That's the book. So it's not a thriller. It is not murdery, gory. It's not spooky. It's not scary.
It has nothing to do with serial killers, and it made me really sad.
Yeah, really not so much.
That was all I wanted. I wanted to read a book about people committing multiple murders.
Yeah. But however, that sounds more like just taste. So what I will say, why I would tell people to steer clear of this book, is because I don't think there's a story here. There is a lot of plot lines that absolutely go nowhere. There is really no development. If it's a story about the relationship between the two ladies, there's really no story there. And in my opinion, in the end, it falls completely flat. I think too much was changed in order to fit the plot rather than writing a plot that fit the characters that she created. And so that is why I would say steer clear of this book. I just don't think the story is well executed. I did say in our video, I think it's well written. I really do enjoy how she wrote dialogue. So there are good things, but if you're a plot reader, don't go anywhere near this book. That was my short version. How about that?
Yeah, you can go check out our book club live stream for the long version.
For the long version.
Okay, so mine that I'm going to talk about here is Platform 7 by Louise Doughty. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her last name. But this was actually a pick for the Literally Dead Book Club, I believe last year or something. It was one of the only books that I read during the book club that last year. And it was terrible. Like, this was supposed to be a thriller. It has deaths, it has ghosts. So it does have some spooky aspects to it, but they are like few and far between. Like, it's just like little bits here and there, and the whole rest of the story is just pretty much talking about her and her abusive boyfriend. That's all it is. It's just a story about abuse and how narcissistic he is and how emotionally abusive he is, and it was pretty much a book about me and my ex-boyfriend.
No wonder you didn't like it.
It was a terrible book. As far as that goes, like, I was reading it the whole time and I'm like, this is too relatable. Where's all of the spooky stuff? It wasn't there. Like, it's supposed to be this story, like, even the little thing in here, it says, like, no one's more desperate to understand what connects her to this man than Lisa Evans herself. After all, she was the first of the two to die. Like, that's drawing you in, like, making you think that there's...
That sounds good.
Right? Like, it's gonna be something good, and you're gonna be like, okay, this is, like, her journey as a ghost to try and, like, help people and do... No. It literally is just talking about her and her terrible relationship the whole time. Anyway, just avoid this book. If you are looking for a thriller, this ain't it, honey. Like, no.
Okay, again, this was a book club for me. Honestly, I don't read enough like spooky horror type books to really have a huge selection, and I've liked most of what I've read. So I'm drawing on book club. But
both of which, let me just say, have been my book club picks. So I feel like Kelly's kind of just like
questioning her taste at this point.
Well, actually, all three of these in your list have been book club picks.
They were her picks for book club.
Oh boy.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. It was an experiment. We found out. This is why she was talking about me not liking Grady Hendrix, because my best friend's exorcism. Yeah, you know, not a thriller. I think it was trying to be like 80s teen scream horror, and I didn't feel that. I didn't get that vibe. I think it was supposed to be funny. I didn't get that. Well, in fact, I think this was supposed to be funny too, and I didn't get it. And maybe it's just the humor I don't get. Maybe I'm more of that kind of humor I need visual cues for, because I wasn't picking it up from the writing. I don't even remember their names. Abby and
Gretchen.
Best friends since they were like 10 years old. I did appreciate very much the 80s references here because I was an 80s high school kid as well. So I did appreciate that. But Abby and Gretchen, they end up going to this like lake party at their friend's house. It's these 4 girls, and Gretchen disappears for a while, and when they find her, she's acting strangely, and nobody else seems to notice, but through the next few days she really starts to act strangely, and Abby's the only one that notices. And so Abby goes off on this quest to figure out what happened. As the title would suggest, Gretchen has been possessed. And so through this whole series of events, Abby tries to exorcise the demon from her friend Gretchen. So that's the basic storyline. There are some funny parts, like Brother Lemon, the wannabe exorcist.
I liked him.
That was funny. That was about the only funny part that I enjoyed. Again, that sounds like taste stuff, but the story was not well put together. It just wasn't. Too much was not explained, and so it made no sense. And you're just left wondering, what the hell, where'd that come from? So I did not like kind of some of those aspects. I didn't think the story was very well put together. So by the end, I really didn't care. I really didn't care. And the very end was weird. I mean, it was just like after, the big thing, which I don't want to get spoilery. It's in the title. The last chapter or 2 was just strange and had like, why? I don't know. I didn't like it. I did not like it. I guess if you're really into 80s teen scream horror, you might find this fun, but I just didn't. So anyway, that's that. Again, longer version, go watch our video.
Okay, so the last 2 books that I'm going to talk about that I think you need to avoid are kind of similar to each other. Both have Netflix TV shows. So
does that one? That was Prime.
Amazon Prime. I started watching it.
What'd you think? No.
I'm not getting into it.
Okay.
But we'll see. I don't even think I'm halfway yet, so maybe there's still time.
I watched the trailer and was not. I don't know. It didn't seem. But maybe that's the vibe they're going for, because it looks kind of like low budget. So
it
maybe
definitely is low budget.
Maybe they're going for the whole 80s
Maybe
horror.
Maybe.
Like B movie. I don't know. Anyway, sideline. But anyway,
yeah. So both of these 2 books have their own Netflix TV shows. The Haunting of Hill House, which is also the name of the book, and then The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is based on the book Turn of the Screw. Both of these books are always on the top lists of scariest books that you're going to read. And I have to say that after reading both of them, stick to watching the Netflix TV show, because the TV shows scared me while watching them. The books made me want to throw them across the room because they were so boring. I fell asleep reading them. It was just, there was nothing scary about them. I don't think that there was a good amount of anticipation or build up to them to make the things that are supposed to be scary. The language makes it really difficult to get into these books, and so that also affected their ability to be scary. And The Turn of the Screw, 80 pages. Okay, it's a tiny book, much smaller than this. And it took me a week to read that book because I didn't want to read it. I really did. I hated it. And I was so confused the entire time. It was a bad experience. And the same with Haunting of Hill House. Like, I even tried reading this out loud to somebody and it still didn't help. So definitely skip both of these and just watch the Netflix TV shows.
Okay, so, and why I still have my copy of this book, I don't know. Probably because I put it on a shelf and was hoping to forget it.
I wanted to burn it.
Yeah, this was, well, we tried. House of Leaves by Mark somebody or other. I can't pronounce the last name.
It's not important.
I really couldn't even tell you what this book was about. It's supposed to be like this family moving into this haunted house, I think. Something like that. I don't know. I kind of remember something about maybe like alternate doorways to alternate worlds or something in the house. I don't know. Basically, that's the reason I would say no, because I couldn't read the book.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, well. Okay, so I know some people actually love this book because it's got all kinds of like nifty little things in it, like footnotes that actually become like a story within a story. And then you'll get like, I just had it like pages where there's like one word on a page and it, you know, gives this vibe or whatever.
Yeah. Which I liked that. I liked the, not the story within a story, because there were like 3 stories inside this one story.
Yeah.
And that made it very confusing. Like I didn't know if I needed to just read all of the footnotes and then go back and read the main story, which also had a story in it.
Well, it's just really confusing because, well, like the main story was like this guy that was interviewing someone else, and then he would include all these footnotes, but then the footnotes was telling like this underneath story. And you know what? I think I read like 5 chapters and I never did get anything about a family in a house.
No.
So I had no idea what I was reading. Nothing.
It was so bad.
No clue. But I think that's why people like it. Some people really get into that sort of thing. And, you know, again, like whole pages with nothing on it. And then there's some pages that are like, I think they're supposed to be like reference notes or something. I think that's his glossary. I don't know. Like I said, I think I read like 5 chapters. This is probably where I stopped. There's a paper in there or something. But like when you have, for instance, like this. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but this is the text. And under the line down at the bottom, that's all footnotes. This page, all footnotes. And I'm like, how can you understand if to me, a footnote is there to explain a piece of text to help you understand. It wasn't doing that. It just like gave me high blood pressure to try and read this book, so I quit and never picked it up ever again until now. And I really think I just forgot I even had it. If you like weird formats, give her a whirl. I don't know, because I can't tell you anything about the story. I don't think we ever got to story. Said from what I read, and I think I got 5 or 6 chapters in, maybe. I never got to a family in a house.
It does eventually start talking about them.
Does it?
In the house, because they go and explore in the house, and then there's like some creature that pops. I don't
know.
It was in one of the stories. There's a creature.
Yeah, I couldn't get that far.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Don't.
No.
Don't give yourself the headache.
Don't do it.
Just don't.
You know, there's people out there that love it, like Books and Lala.
There are.
They read that, I think, for the book club or something, and she loved it. She loved it, and I about unsubscribed. I'm sorry, Kayla. I love you. Not that you're watching this video, but
you never know.
You never know. Yeah.
You never know.
I love all of your videos to death. You know, I watch them the minute they come out. But the minute that you said you liked House of Leaves, my opinion of you changed.
You know what else? She likes Cersei.
Yeah, I know.
Kayla.
Girl, we need to have a conversation. We need to sit down and have a talk.
You know she lives in Canada.
That's fine. I will come to you.
We could go to Canada.
I love Canada. Canada's beautiful.
Okay.
We'll have to wait till after winter because I'm dealing with your snow. But yeah.
Tangent, but yeah, if you do like that sort of like non-traditional format, if you don't mind, I guess, if it's interesting, I don't mind meandering through a book and taking my time with it. But this is like, wow, I'm done. I'm all done.
I'm done too. It's freaking cold.
Are you all done? I do want to say, I have been, you know, I mentioned Dean Winchester before.
Mm-hmm.
The last week, I have been going back and watching the early seasons of Supernatural.
Yes.
They are flippin' creepier than I remember.
Oh, yes!
I mean, really, like, the later seasons didn't ever creep me out.
Yeah. The later seasons are all about humor and sass.
Yeah. But the first couple seasons, they're creepy as shit. I just had to put that plug in there. If you're looking for something visual and you've never seen Supernatural before,
if you're looking for something visual,
go look it up.
Jensen Ackles too.
Yeah. Go Netflix, man.
Yes.
Go watch the first couple seasons.
The first 3 seasons of Supernatural
supernatural.
are hardcore like spook.
Yeah, like jump scares, and
Yeah.
that's why I said,
They're creepy, they're good.
I'm a visual person. There was one season that went off the rails for me, but anyway, another tangent, but I did want to kind of throw that out there because I have been watching it lately, and I thought, you know what, that is spooky. That's spooky.
It's so good.
It's so good.
But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, that's it.
I think we're gonna end it here because it's freaking freezing out here.
And dark.
And dark.
And really dark, and yeah, we
And our-
pretty much ran out of all battery and room.
This is so bad. We literally have 2 minutes left, so this is our outro.
Well, you know what? I think we've literally been going on for like an hour and a half.
I'm gonna enjoy editing this. Okay. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching our video, listening to us ramble about books. Hopefully it gave you some ideas on some things to read this spooky season. Maybe we talked about some books you hadn't heard of before, you hadn't read yet, so yeah, hopefully there's something in there that you guys will enjoy. And let us know, like down in the comments, if you agree with our spooky season picks, if you have any recommendations for us.
What's your spooky read?
Yeah, like I am always on the hunt for some good spooky reads. Let me know down in the comments, let us know. And yeah, I think that's it.
Let's go inside.
I'm ready to go inside, Kelly.
Let's get off the dark spooky bleachers
Please.
before something sneaks up on
We're
us.
right across the street from a cemetery too.
We
So
are.
That
We
just
are.
adds to the creepy factor.
We were gonna go film in the cemetery, but then there were people in there, and we thought that might look a little too weird.
I mean, it'd be very morbid. But
It would be. So we decided maybe we should just come over to. We're at an old schoolyard, is what we're in, and
an old abandoned schoolyard.
Schoolyard, and so yeah, there was like this creepy merry-go-round over there that keeps
Just spinning away.
spinning in the wind.
The ghosts are having fun, and the
In
swings.
the wind.
The swings are just swinging
And we're here on the
bleachers.
weedy, spooky bleachers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of ready to go home.
Me too. But anyway, okay, that's gonna do it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful October, a wonderful spooky season. Merry-go-round's telling us it's time to leave because I heard some things jingling over there. So anyway, we'll see you guys next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.